last week on the Nicoletti Show. Without further ado, Corey Geary, what is up, man? Mr. Novation Nation.
80% of our deals are novations. You have to do your due diligence on anyone you're working with, and especially if you're cutting them checks. I do everything hardcore and I go all in on everything.
That is what is driving you. You see the opportunity and you really want to go for it. And that drive gets you there.
You have to have time with novations because you're doing a retail transaction. At the end of the day, they call us for one reason. It's for convenience. That's why I love novations too, man. The transparency is key. When the seller's calling you, you have a hot lead. Title companies will mess the HUDs up. We had it one time with a seller sign, and we go and it comes to us, and we looked at we're getting $30,000 of the seller's proceeds. Immediately, I halted the sale, right? I halted the deal, and I said, "Hey, call the title."
And that's the face he had when he was in shock when he saw that, right? Corey, you're awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Novation Nation, love what you're doing. Keep going. What's up, everybody? It is Wednesday night in the Al Nicoletti studio. I'm so happy all of you will be tuning in for the episode tonight. It's 9 p.m. I love going live. And tonight, I really wanted to bring a special person on the show that's a super follower, a super fan of the show, and also a local rising investor in the Jacksonville community. I think that's so important when we can bring people in that are crushing it and rising in their market so that we can really dive in and talk about what these people are doing. And no better than Trey Hagins, who's really killing it in his market. And we're going to dive in on so much stuff. I hope you all have your notebooks and your pens ready. I'm always ready to take notes on this stuff because we are always learning what's going on, what the market's like, and in an ever-changing market like what it is right now. I can tell you so many things going on in the probate world with different things happening with buyers and people backing out. But we are going to talk about what it really takes to dive in the beginning stages and really start picking up the pace when it comes to deals. So I'm ready. I know you all are too. So let's do this thing. Hey, everybody. My name is Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida. And welcome to the Al Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their community that educate, entertain, and inspire all things on Florida real estate and bringing on people in our local communities and beyond. I mean, bringing on people in other parts of the country, different states, different cities, but also so important that we focus and hyper-focus on our local communities and the investors and people that are killing it in their market, because we want to learn how they started, where they've been, the struggles they're going through, how they're going to continue doing amazing deals, and what areas of real estate they're focusing on, and how you can take your company to the next level. I do that intro, I feel like every time, and I'm just amazed at the kind of people that we're able to bring on the show. I'm honored, I'm privileged when we can bring people on that understand what it takes to take their business to the next level. And our guest today, Trey Hagins, is a local rising investor in the Jacksonville market. So we all go to networking events. We're all either going to Yellowbird or Jack's RIA, the Jacksonville Investor Association over here, Jackie Hare's group. She's doing an amazing job with the MCM meetings that happens. And it's really cool when we can meet some investors that are starting to really make a pace for themselves in the market, no matter where the market's at, no matter if it's in a shift, if we have to pivot, if it's a hot seller's market, or now moving maybe to a buyer's market back and forth. It's great to network with anybody and everybody in this community to find out what they're doing. And I got the opportunity to network with Trey. We got to have lunch together, sit down. I got to understand what he was doing, how he was working on things. He really wanted to hear all about the probate world, but I wanted to hear what he was doing. And we are going to dive in on some crazy things today about really knowing your market and what areas of town to invest in, right? So many different areas, so many different zip codes. You can go west side, east side, north side, south, but really knowing where to focus on, what type of assets you want to get into, and knowing your clients and what their goals are. So it's not just about what you're doing, but it's about the people that you're trying to attract and understanding what they're seeing through their lens. That's the kind of stuff that you're trying to do. And are they working with buy and hold? Are they doing things with flippers? What are they doing in their market? That's going to be cute. That's going to be huge. And finding deals in this market, is cash still king, or is seller financing the way to do it? That's been a big question lately too, right? If you're a cash buyer, this market's great for you, because you're in a great opportunity where people are now negotiating back and forth. If you're trying to get financing from a bank that's doing the 6-7% kind of interest rates, it's crazy. But a lot of people are getting into seller terms, seller finance, where you're getting creative with doing deals on terms and making that initial payment and then doing some kind of arrangement with sellers. So we'll talk about that and understanding the financing options out there and how to plug them. And are you and your team good at tracking and running those numbers? That's going to be big. And if you want partners to work on deals, you got to know and get in the business, know who they are, understanding what partnerships are like. So as you can see, we're going to get into so much, and I'm so happy that we have Trey in studio, in the Al Nicoletti studio. So let's welcome him to the show. Trey Hagins. Trey, what's up, man?
Dude, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for the intro. I mean, if I just had a hype man like you everywhere, I would have the best day ever. So.
I always have just so much fun when I get to sit down with you, connect with you. I see you at the Realtor Builder Trade Show.
Yeah,
and
man.
I'm like, this guy's doing like good stuff. He's out there. He's wanting to network. And the one thing that what you were telling me is how you're getting under contract with sellers, you're listing properties, you're doing your thing. And the idea of like, you're always trying to get out there more. And I really think that's so big when we never have the opportunity at networking events, just like we were talking backstage. We never have the ability to, at networking events, find out, what does Trey do? What was Trey's background? How did you segment in there? What have you done to maneuver things in your world of business and go full-time real estate and pivot and, shift in there? So Trey, I love that you're here. I'm so happy you're in person. Let's tell everybody, like, who's Trey? How did you get here?
Yeah, man. So, I moved over here about 4 years ago. I'm from South Carolina. My wife and I both are. She's a pharmacist. She got a job offer down here in Yulee. And when we moved down, I said, I always wanted to be in Jacksonville. I wanted to be in real estate. I wanted to figure out what the market is going in here. And I was just pumped to finally get my legs under when I got my license. 2019, got the license, started, getting into real estate, learning the markets in town, figuring out what was pretty much what was our goal. Our goal was to buy our first property. And I said, okay, like, how do we make this thing happen? We found a place in Riverside, absolutely loved it. And COVID struck, and I lost my job and went into real estate full time, had contracts underway, realized that I actually couldn't. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank on this is a live thing. I couldn't actually.
This is what's fun about it.
This was fun about it. You're right. I realized that I could not provide what I needed in real estate to basically provide for the family that I wanted with my wife. So I jumped out of real estate in about 2020, got into a full-time job again and said, okay, I have to get back into real estate. Like, this is where my go-to is. This is where my passions are. I had to just figure out, like, how do I get back into there? So I really started diving into saying, okay, like, what do I need to do to get into learn, the investor side? How do I go and start scaling my business, my brand as a realtor, not just being, Trey, I can do any job you throw at me. I want to focus on one more thing and just, scaling deals, finding out, how it works. When I'm working with a residential person, it's all emotion based. When I'm working with an investor, it's all numbers based. So learning each and every aspect of just real estate was kind of a trial by fire, so to speak. So like the first 6 months of going into real estate, I had deals underway. I was starting to, build headway in 2020, and then COVID struck. I lost everybody that was under contract because they were in hospitality. It's a lesson learned on my end that I focused so much in one thing, and I didn't really know how to build myself out of that hole. When I got the other job and I said, hey, I want to get back into real estate, that's when I really started reaching out. Hey, what's Yellowbird look like? What do these REI meetings look like? How do I actually get a sense to, speak to these people? And I went to one of these REI meetings and I said, hey, I've got my real estate license. I really want to get into this market with you guys. Like, tell me what I can learn. And I had a lot of people actually come up and they were just like, oh, you're a new agent. Unfortunately, we loved having you here, but we can't work with you because you don't know anything. And I was like, that's fair. This is a very big financial transaction that goes on. So scaling back and being, okay, like, how do I get a chance to grow? How do I find this knowledge base? So I started reaching out and working with property managers, just asking people like, hey, like, what can I learn in this aspect? YouTube videos. I mean, there's a ton of information that's out there.
Right.
You have to be the person that actually goes out and find it. I waited for so long for people to give me the information that I kind of kick myself nowadays, where I should have just been the one to say, hey, like, this is the track I want to go. This is where I want to focus my efforts on. And it really does like show, like, the more energy you put into something, the more you're going to get out of it. And as of, about a month ago, I left my last job. I'm doing real estate now full time. I'm an agent and with Sandbar Realty. Shout out to Kira.
Shout out to Kira.
She's been a great broker so far, and I really see some big things scaling with her. And just the investment side of things, I'm looking to try to grow my own portfolio and try to find more people to work with. And it's amazing what we learn every day in real estate. And I want to do what I can on my part to share that with more people that are coming in.
Yeah, I think that's all great. And let's unpack this for a second. So you just went full-time real estate not too long ago, right? So you were kind of having to do both your other job and real estate at the same time to balance that act. What was going through your mind when you really were like, wait a second, I really got to make this shift. I really want to pivot into real estate full time. I don't want to do what I'm doing 9 to 5 anymore. Because I asked this question because, I'm surrounded by a lot of people too that aren't in real estate. And they watch the show or they'll see videos that people are posting and they don't want to just make $42,000 a year. They're done doing that. They want to make the $30,000 wholesale assignment fee. They want to make the $50,000 a month on the Airbnb. What was going through your mind and some of the things that you started to put into play that made the transition seamless so you can really ramp up the contracts? And like you said, you got your license, you got your real estate license. What were you doing and going through your mind to really make that pivot and change?
I think it really helped that I was in a sales background already. So just coming in and just, reading those books, 10X, Rich Dad Poor Dad, all those things that just really give you that mindset of there's other ways to make money. That really kind of pushed my mind to say, okay, I don't need this as much as I think. When you leave the comfort of benefits and, vacation days, certain things like that, you have to work for yourself. But at the same time, what are you working for? Like for me, I want to work towards, getting my time back. Like I want to, build a family. I want to know that my family is taken care of, but I wanted to, be there for those big moments. I want to actually, spend everything that I can, do what I can to teach other people. And we all want that financial freedom, but what does that financial freedom look like to you? That was my big eye opener of being like, hey, I don't need to make $1 billion. If I can figure out ways to get cash flow coming in, and if I can make, 35, 40 grand a year just on passive cash flow, that's enough for another person. That's enough for like me to take care of like my family. And I can, focus on other things. Like how do I keep scaling that? Real estate's a very scalable thing, as you can tell. I mean, as we always talk about,
right. It's
just a matter of finding those right people that, can share that same interest and figure out where you can add value to them so that they can add value back in your life.
Yeah. And I remember I had Mark Marcellus on the show talking about networking events, and you just brought that up, with Yellowbird and some of the other events that you've been to. Yeah. So for people that are like interested in really getting into it, it sounds like for you that worked really segmenting and diving into those groups and showing up, right? Showing up is half the battle, getting there, talking to people. What were some tips and things that you can share that really helped start really making those connections for you to start doing deals? Like we will get into the deal too. I don't want to forget the deal that you, Matt Lentz, and I don't know who the other person was, but you,
Josh. Yeah.
Nice. I mean, yeah, I saw that you guys posted that picture of the commercial property, and it's like building those relationships. So what did you start doing when you were going to networking events that really clicked and started working for you?
I think the biggest thing for me was just figuring out that I need to speak to at least 3 people every single time I go to a networking event. It's got to be 3 brand new people. Go find those people that you don't know, but you want to know in your area. I mean, there's some big players that are out here that love to talk and love to just give out the information. It's so hard for people nowadays to just go and walk up like, hey, Al, how are you doing, man? Like, can you teach me a little bit about probate? Where like we can go and have that conversation right now. It's something that I feel like is a necessity in these networking events. I mean, when I started saying I wanted to get into real estate, I kept raising my hand at every event, and I just said, hey, like, I'm a new guy. I really want to partner with some people. I don't know what I don't know. So what can I like learn with other people? And sure enough, like, it's just like I started getting random hits of people like, hey, I want to talk with you. Like, I can offer this. What can you offer? And sure enough, like, I got a group of people to come together, and we bought a single family home from Cash Geek. So it was a great, first purchase. We bought basically the crack house in '08. Totally. Like, I honestly, we first bought the property and it was terrifying to go into, but then I saw like the value. I saw everything that we could, do for the community over in that area. And I just said, it's one house, but that's still enough to, get the ball rolling for me.
Right.
And we did all of the work ourselves on the property. Huge eye openers. Never going to do it again.
Rehab.
Rehab wise. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like, we subbed out, the flooring and certain things like that, but we did painting. We did, like my partners, like they painted the ceilings. We did drywall patching. We did, fixtures, everything of that sort. And we came to realize that it was a lot. It was, again, we didn't know. We kind of did the YouTube handyman special, right, and it still looked okay, but we could have scaled that to be so much better. And I think that was just the eye opener for this next one. The next one, we got this more commercial property, and we started saying, okay, like, let's outsource more, because we don't want to put all of our eggs in this basket doing 8 different units.
Yeah. So what on the flip went wrong, right? Like, what was it? Just that you just the materials were just too expensive. You didn't have the right people to go to. Was it just too time consuming? What was because here's the thing. A lot of people see all the shows, the flip shows, and they're like, oh, we want to do that. Like, that would be a lot of fun. And some people do really well doing that. Right? Some people love doing that kind of stuff. But like you said, you tried it. You don't want to get into that. Who knows? Maybe like something will come up again and it sparks something. But what did you realize when you were doing it and you said, wait a second, there's no way that if I keep doing this, it's going to be scalable?
I think it was more so just like, I as much as I pretend to be a handy person, like I can fix my own surfboards and stuff like that, I could not go and like do drywall. I couldn't lay down flooring and stuff. And it's not that I can't, it's just I don't know how. So for me, it would have been a learning curve, and it would have been more of a costly thing of like, hey, if I'm going to take time to do this, it's going to be, it could be a 5-day process where somebody can come and knock this out in a half a day. So for me, it was just, like, what's the time invested? Like, I can spend my time doing, better things, looking for more deals, etc. And that was my eye opener for it. It was like, I'm happy that I got a chance to jump in and see what I could be a part of. But then I realized after, I was like, this isn't like the style that I want to do. And I'm definitely want to get into that more as I grow, but I need to focus on the operation side first before I can start focusing on actually like peeling apart, like, like, let me do the handyman stuff. Like, I want to actually know that like my model is taking off, and then I can come back and grow.
Cool. Hey, we got Jesse Pfaff. He's out there in Green Bay, Wisconsin. What's up, Jesse? Jesse said, would love to know your buy box, what you're looking to buy for your portfolio.
Yeah, for the most part, I'm just buy and hold. I'd be open to getting into more fix and flips, but right now I've got 9 doors myself. I've got a single family that's a 3-1, and then the other one that Al was talking about, the 8-plex. And I'd love to keep scaling that into more of a multifamily, because my one partner, Josh, was right. You do the same thing that you're going to do for a single family that you're going to do for a multifamily. It's all the same process. It's just more heads to take care of and stuff.
Right. No, I think, and I find this interesting about you pivoting away from, wait, that didn't work, we don't want to do that. Hey, let's go try this. And that, you're really getting into the creative financing route, which is something that I had Nick Legamaro on my show talking about that. He said there's never been a better time to get into seller terms and creative financing than now with the way the interest rates are and the way that the market's going.
Yeah. So
we'll talk about that. But let's go with basics, right? So anybody that's really diving into this market right now, and this helps all of us out there when we're thinking, what's the market like on a ground level? What's the market doing like right now that we can learn from? And one of the things you wanted to get into, which is knowing your market, right? So new investor, seasoned investor, that's a concept that we all have to know. What does that mean? And where are you looking to invest? Like, what is that criteria of whether it's an Airbnb, a buy and hold? What are you looking for?
So, for me, I'm looking for that long-term cash flow. For me, like, the number up front isn't the big issue. It's that, what am I making a monthly? Like, how can I support my family? What if I die tomorrow? Is my family taken care of? That is what I try to live and breathe by now. Cause my goal is if I can get, $3,000 in cash flow a month by the end of next year, that's where I like to be. And that's not a very hard number. I don't think that's a non-achievable, but it's the steps you have to take to get to there. And I feel like I'm on pace for it at this point. I just have to, basically get those baby steps in between to kind of get to there. But when you're talking about the market, it's really just about who are you working with as an agent. Myself, like, you have to know who your client is. So if they're the fix and flipper, okay, chances are they're going to want to do, an off-market deal. If it's a buy and hold investor, are you using conventional financing? Are you using cash? What are you looking for? And then you kind of just peel that back again, as a new investor, what are you looking to do? Some people are just like, oh, I can do the work myself. Well, it goes back to, do you want to invest that time into it? What kind of properties are you looking for? What's the overall goal you're trying to achieve? When you hear cash flow, okay, well, cash flow can happen in Airbnb and stuff as well. But if you don't know that market, if you're just coming in brand new, you're probably going to crash and burn if you don't have people, kind of carrying you to that next point. So that's why, I love working with partners. There's a lot that I don't know, and I love bringing in more people to kind of give me that extra info and that extra, like, hey, this is a good idea, this is a bad idea. Because I can go and say, hey, let's put on, black doors and, black shakers everywhere, and let's paint the walls pink. That sounds great. And then you're like, no, nobody wants that. That looks terrible. So you just have to kind of know what's going to work in your market. Good example is when we got the Aplex, we didn't want to, we wanted to make it area appropriate. So area appropriate, you have to speak to the right partners in those areas. You don't want to go and make this next Ritz-Carlton in the spot that Days Inn is only in,
Gotcha.
You want to make sure it's, what works out for there. So if it's not like high end, just make it regular every day.
Gotcha. So knowing where you want to go, what the market's like, and are you using any metrics or specific software or any types of, maybe it's Zillow or whatever's out there? What are some ways that you're able to kind of figure out where those best markets are right now?
I mean, I think that one of the easiest ways that people can figure out where those markets are growing is just look at the development that's happening in town. We know that the shipyards is going to be blowing up over here soon. The downtown area is finally actually starting to grow legs that, people have been waiting for years. I mean, Oakleaf is blowing up. I mean, all over Jacksonville, there's opportunity. You to just figure out what your goal is. Are you fixing and flipping? Are you buying and holding? Like for me, I love investing in 08 and 06. Those are the areas that have had, they've been rougher areas for the longest time. But now that they're actually growing, they're changing. I mean, it's, not people aren't shooting, down the street anymore. Most of the time now it's just, cars, backfiring and stuff. So it's, those areas are changing and there's still so much opportunity. You're still finding properties for, under 60 a door. So, I mean, you just have to just go and be willing to put yourself through a little bit of that to know that the end game is going to be a lot better as the town grows.
Yeah. It's funny. Like, I don't know. When I hear what we're talking about, the one thing that I heard was the shipyard area. What's going on in the shipyard?
I mean, everything is blown up over there, man. They've got, new office buildings that they're putting up over there. They've got the Forsons.
Jacksport? Really?
Yeah. They've dredged it. They've got a whole bunch of opportunity coming over here. And that's, I think, what's been a huge driving force for all this money coming into town. And once they actually start to break ground on those projects, it's going to open up the floodgates. I mean, we have the Bass Pro Shop going on over in Nocatee, like that's being built over there. And that area is just blowing up with shops, restaurants and stuff because they've done their information and they've said, hey, if this $1 billion company is going to come put their spot here, let's build around it. Same thing now with the downtown. Hey, like they're just dumping so much money into the landings, everything over here. It's going to start growing. That's why Springfield is really starting to, finally show its face of it's been a part of the town that's been just ever changing.
It's really interesting. I've driven by the Jacksport area, the shipyard area. I mean, going to the airport numerous times and I'm thinking there's really nothing over there. But then that's also a good sign because that may be new opportunity coming up. Who knows? There's probably way more industrial, commercial opportunities surrounding that that maybe you can snatch up, and maybe that whole area will rezone or they'll do something with it. I could also see that being maybe a great Airbnb spot only for the people that are the workers or people that are coming in off the cruise ships, or I don't even know if I think there are cruise ships that even come over there.
Yeah, I think so.
So who knows? That could be really good. And that's really good info, right? I didn't know that was now a booming spot. Springfield, of course, I've heard that that was once a big area. Then all of a sudden it turned into what it was. And now all of a sudden it's been something that a lot of investors go after in '06 in historic areas. So that's big. And, the other thing that's happening is because the interest rates are high and probably are going to go higher. I can't wait to see what happens with that. But that's squeezing the market on people that are not able to buy with those types of FHA, conventional, right? Cash is king, but also seller financing and doing creative deals seems to be the hot ticket topic right now among Airbnb, among some of those other topics. But getting really creative with it. I actually was just asked this. I was on the podcast today with Sharon Vornholt, and she was saying asked me, can you get creative with probate deals? And I'm thinking, you can get creative with any type of deal that you are getting into. One, it's got to make sense for the seller, the buyer, the title company. It's got to make sense for anybody that's working in on it, whoever's on it. But ultimately, you can get creative on a deal, and that means doing things on terms. What are you seeing right now in terms of cash financing? What are you learning? What's happening in that world so we can dive in on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that cash, is obviously such an easy thing. Cash is everywhere right now. I think that the people that are willing to go and to look at those seller financing deals, I mean, I'm honestly still new into this market, but I've learned so much in the last couple of weeks that I've just been diving just head first into it. Like, who wouldn't want to make themselves the bank? I mean, if we look at where the market is right now in just the US, I mean, majority, or what is it? Like, I think a third of owners in the US are going to have interest rates of like less than 5% now, like in the next couple of years. That means they're going to be paying off way more of their debts way faster. They're going to have way more money, and they're going to have more and more freedom to say, hey, like, I can go and what's the easiest way I can put this? Like, I can go buy more properties when my interest rates go down because I already have this paid off asset that's I can refinance, or I can, take a HELOC out on. I think that learning that information now on how to structure those deals and what those kind of look like, those balloon payments, they're not a scary thing that we learn about, like, oh, don't go after a balloon payment. Well, I mean, if the payment works and you can do it, in 2 years instead of 5 years, why aren't you looking into these kind of options? And that's actually taking off way faster now. I was kind of expecting, like I said, like, I'm still new into the seller finance aspect, but people are so open to listening to it. Most people don't want to do, like a 5-10 year balloon, but they will listen to, 10 to 15, but they'll listen to like 3 to 5 year. And knowing like what those numbers look like, hey, if I have a monthly payment of, $1,200 and I can rent this place out for $1,500, sure, I'll take that all day for like a 3-year thing and then refinance out. So it's just figuring out how ways you can get this cash flow going on and stuff is, I think, a big eye opener for like a lot of investors coming out, teaching agents that, and getting agents to help structure those deals with homeowners that say, hey, like, we want to work with how we can, make ourselves the bank. Like, that's a way that somebody can go retire without actually, giving up everything, like, without actually having to, give up their job, with making sure that they can just support themselves. Like, hey, I get 50 grand down, and if you default after 90 days, I keep that money, but then I get that money to go put towards the next property. That helps me win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and I was looking at the comment section thinking the same thing, Jesse, thinking the same thing you were, which is, it sounds great. I understand it because the Hive Mind guys, I don't know if you know them, they're in San Antonio. About a year ago, they bought this like huge mansion property in San Antonio that was like in some kind of, I don't know if it was at a tax deed or a foreclosure. And normally that kind of property would have been like an $800,000 deal. Ends up that I think they only put down, and guys, tell me if the numbers are wrong, because if they're watching and this gets shared onto the groups, just tell me what the numbers were. I think it was like they put $10,000 down, and now they're just making the payments, and now they're Airbnb-ing the thing. And it's like, it went from being a massive risk to low risk, and now getting creative with how are we going to work it on the back end. And I think that's just so different. But Jesse brought up a great question, which is, or statement, which is the toughest part of a seller finance sub 2 is educating the owner agent how it's beneficial. And I'm thinking the same thing, like, what are some things and things that maybe you're learning or seeing on how do you really educate this owner or the agent that's trying to get in on this to do this, that, hey, we know the conventional route, we know the cash route, check this out. What are some things you're learning on how to actually explain it?
Dude, I think the easiest thing that it boils down to is just showing those numbers. Like in a conventional loan, in a cash transaction, you show those things like right off the bat. With like seller financing, it's one of those things that like you're pretty much showing a whole playbook behind you and getting people to understand like it's really not a hard process. It's, basically like, hey, I'm going to take either the note from you or I'm going to go ahead and give you a down payment. You don't owe anything to the bank, so you don't have to listen to anybody else. This is just what I'm showing people like an amortization rate, showing those kind of like, just like, hey, this is what you're going to make. If you can actually print out those numbers and hand it to somebody and say, hey, you're going to make an extra 30 grand in the next 5 years just from interest from me alone, but I'm going to keep this and I'm going to own the property from you after, like, or I'll buy it back from a bank at a lower interest rate. Showing people those numbers gets them to go a lot more of a long way with you, because it basically relieves them of the worry of like, hey, like, what does this number actually look like? If I showed you a paper and I said, hey, I'm going to make you 50 grand in 5 years for you not doing anything, and here's how it's going to happen and build out, you're going to sit there and listen a little bit more because I've shown you the work. And now I'm going to peel it back and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. It's just adding one extra step. And instead of me going to the bank, I'm coming to you. So it's a slow process with them because it's a trust aspect. Hey, do I trust you with, can you pay off my property? Well, what happens if I don't? The contract clearly states that I lose the money that I put down as a down payment. You keep all the interest that you've gotten. So it's more of a risk for the person buying than it is for, I think, the person selling. But I mean, there's also just risk involved on both sides. So it's just, what are you comfortable with doing? But I think that that's going to be a really big mark to come forward to. And the more that we can understand it and how to make it an easier process for those sellers that are looking to give up those properties. I mean, here in Jacksonville, we have just a great opportunity around here for a lot of those people that are retirees. I mean, it's Florida. There's tons of retirees. The silver tsunami is coming here. You've mentioned that before. So,
right. So I could see it being like the education side. I could see it being more on, I would say, really showing them case studies and testimonials, right? On, hey, this is what we've worked on. This is what we've done. These are the opportunities that people have gotten into. Is that one of the ways, testimonials and case studies?
Yeah. I mean, people want to know that like what they're doing isn't reinventing the wheel. People want to know that they're comfortable. Somebody else has done the exact same thing. And as long as you can show that confidence with somebody, hey, I want to make you an extra 50 grand, but I need it on these terms. If you're comfortable with doing that, why aren't you looking into the idea of it? Like the worst you can say is, no, sorry, this doesn't work. Cool. I'll go move on to find somebody else. But if there's merit to it, let's peel back that onion and kind of just see what works out for you. If the down payment I have doesn't work, what number would you be comfortable with? If you're telling me to give you 20%, I should just go to a regular bank and just take out a loan. But if you're saying I'll do 5% or 10% for like a 5 to 10 year balloon, how do we, try to figure out what number works for you? Where do you need to get to?
Right.
Asking the seller, I think right off the bat, hey, what do you need to get to leave here comfortably? Because they may just say, hey, I need a down payment for another house. Cool. Here's, 30 grand. What does that look like to you?
Yeah.
That may save me an extra 30 grand right there, because they may want, 60 grand in total put down.
Yeah. I mean, I used to hear that the creative financing thing thrown around a lot in the last year, but actually seeing like what that looks like and how it plays out is really neat. It's neat in this kind of market, especially when you can be the bank. Like Nicoletti Show was on the show talking about, you don't even have to own the property. You can just be the bank. You can be the one that's either financing it or selling the note or creating the note, whatever you're doing. So there's so many different options you can get into. And I'm really curious to see, as you continue doing this, what your adventures are with this, and where you're gonna venture off with seeing this stuff and how it relates to this. So, and the other thing that was really neat was understanding the finance options that are out there, right? Like understanding like what are they, how do you plug them in? What are the opportunities? And getting a good understanding of tracking your numbers. What is that all about?
For me, it's the system that I put in place. One of my partners, Josh, showed me the app Deal Check, and it's a great way to, I break it down. What's the interest rate look like? What points am I adding? What's the rehab budget look like? What's the cost overturn? Pretty much just getting that gauge of like, okay, like if I put in, say, let's easy numbers, $100,000 property, and I need to put down, 20%, 20 grand, but then it needs to have an extra 30 grand on it for rehab. All that's shown in those apps that just really help out. A lot of people use spreadsheets and Excel and they have their own things. I like using this app because it'll tell me that rate of like, hey, this is the increase over a, say 3% appreciation. It's all one big spreadsheet in general, what we all do. But for me, I like it making it as simple as possible. I will take my numbers that I run, I will run it to my partners and I'll say, hey, does this look like it's right? And they'll tell me if I'm like in the green, if I'm in the red, what can I do different? And that's what I like coming to other people about it is like, hey, these are my numbers. I'd love to learn your numbers because everybody's got their own different financing options. And if we use apps like this or even Excel spreadsheets to figure out what everybody has as like different rates, we can find the ones that best work out for us. Because if I go to you or if I go to, big bank, if I go to, Tom down the street, everybody's going to offer me like a different hard money loan or, say an investor loan, whatever it can be. You just figure out what numbers work out for you. And having those kind of systems in place just to peel back those numbers makes it so much faster because then you can go back and you say, hey, I've got this property. This guy will give me, 7%. This person will give me 6%. You just have to know your numbers in any market. And that may take a lot of more legwork to find out what they're willing to give you, but take that time to reach out to, 20 different lenders or who will give you the opportunity to.
Yeah, I think that's great advice right there, especially, either early on or where you're at in your business right now with real estate. I mean, that's stuff right there that Trey's seeing on his end that can be really huge. And just shout out to everybody that's watching tonight. I mean, Jesse, of course, thanks for dropping in, asking questions, no matter where you are in your markets. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that can help and really focusing on your local market. So thanks, Jesse, for watching. My guy, Robert Rodriguez. Robert, what's happening, man? What's been new in your world down there in South Florida? We got to hear what's happening. I love that you're watching. Kevin, I love that you're watching. He says, good evening from Lakeland, Florida. Awesome. Clint Brooks said, I've done rent to own for a few years now. So, I mean, those are some other options that are out there, right? Lease options, rent to own, creative financing. Bradley, he says, great show so far. Question for Trey. How can an investor just getting started figure out accurate estimates on the deal analysis without having experience on costs?
That's a good question. I guess.
Yeah. Said, yeah. How can an investor just getting started figure out accurate estimates on the deal analysis without having experience on costs?
Great question, Bradley. I would try to get at least 3 quotes. Anybody you speak to, find out what kind of work that's needed. If I need to go down, lay flooring in a property, what does flooring look like? Give me 3 different people. That's why I love using Yellowbird. I love using our REI groups around here. It's because I can reach out to everybody and they'll tell me exactly, hey, I've used this person. This person was great. This person, way too much money. And then you get a chance to go and actually like speak to those people. You get a chance to see their actual work. Hey, did they do a good job for the price that they gave you? Did they do, was it too expensive? And finding out that was super helpful to me to say like always, just because you have like the best friend that's say the contractor or the flooring, whatever it is, always get somebody else to, say, hey, this is my number that I can give you for the job. Because then you can come back and you can say, hey, like you're my family member, but you're charging me, 40 grand more than it needs to be. This is what the job looks like. If they want to work with you, obviously you work with the deals, but finding out those kind of aspects. And then just Google is a super helpful thing, especially it's a roundabout number. But if I type in there, hey, I need an electric panel changed out, Google will still tell me it's about 1,700. I mean, you can still get that range of, a electric panel change out 1,300 to 1,700 is what that range usually is that I've seen at least over here. So that may have changed in the last couple of months, but at least just typing in like, hey, again, LVP, $1.50 a square foot, $3 a square foot is way too much. This is probably around where it needs to be for it. So
Yeah, and I like the suggestion of the Yellowbird community, right? So one of the coolest things that has been happening is the Facebook groups are big. Yellowbird's got their Facebook group. I mean, I'm sure there's people, if you drop that question in there, you ask, of course there's going to be ranges and it's going to depend on what the items are, right? And especially if it's windows nowadays, right?
Oh yeah.
But you're going to get some kind of idea.
And dude, the more specific that you can be in that question, the more helpful it's going to be for that person that's trying to answer to get back with you. And I'm amazed every time about just how much information is given out. Like you can ask one question of like, hey, tell me about a dumpster company that's around here. And you'll get like 17 people that will come out and be like, this is the right person. This is the right one. And it's just great that you have that kind of support. Like they'll even tell you, hey, I had a terrible relationship with this one. It just didn't work out. And that's fine. Like I want to know that like, hey, if somebody else had the same heartburn, am I going to come across that same thing? So It's great to use those resources around here. This town is full of people that want to help out and get you to grow your business.
Yeah. So Bradley, I mean, what Trey's talking about is really getting connected with the local community and also being able to tap into some of those resources that are out there like that can really help and figure things like that out there, right? Whether you're new or seasoned, or get with the people that are seasoned that have been doing it 5-10 years, learn from what they've seen. And then also pay attention to the feeds in like the Yellowbird Connect Facebook groups, because people will actually vent on there about the frustrations and the things that are happening right now. Hey, windows are super expensive. Hey, lumber's really expensive. Wait, the price is coming down. Or wait, if you go here, this is an opportunity. People will post that multiple times. They'll ask the same question like 5 times, and you'll get people posting and responding to it. So that's another way to do it. Let's talk about the eightplex.
Okay.
This was one of the coolest posts I've seen that you and Matt have done. And I still remember the picture. You and Matt are like standing there, like, just hanging out. And, you bought the building, right? You bought this big building. Is a commercial building.
Yeah. Bought a commercial property. Yeah.
And I remember we were talking backstage and you're like, man, we've learned so much from just buying this one thing. I want to hear the success. I want to hear the struggle. I want to hear what you would have done differently and what is on the horizon for the next time you buy a commercial property to get into it. I want to hear what your side of it was and what you guys went through.
Oh man. Well, for starting with it, we when we first were looking at just like what we can get into, this was after we had all come together as a group. It was me, Matt, and my other partner, Josh. And we came together and we said, okay, we've got this powerhouse of a group. Where are we going to find? And we started reaching out, and actually Freedom Homebuyers, Obi's group.
Nice.
Yeah, they had this property off of 32nd Street, and it was a duplex. And I can't even remember if the eightplex is online just yet, but we said, hey, like we want to put an offer on the duplex. What else you got available? And they're like, well, we got this property next door. So we said, cool. We got an offer together, put on both projects together, and both properties together on one contract. And when we went through the inspections, we found out that the inspections showed us a little bit more than we wanted to see on the duplex, but they were still open to keeping the eightplex in the offer because they wanted both at the same time, both at once. And when we said, hey, like there's a lot of work that needs to be done on this, that we don't want to go down that route. Can we keep this eightplex going? And they were like, sure. So we moved forward with it. We bought the property with tenants inherited. And that was probably the biggest education piece that I can tell people is like, when you buy a property with inherited tenants, speak to them. They're real people. It may suck dealing with them, but you have to. And then you just have to just realize, okay, like what's it going to take to get this property fixed up? We already knew that going in. We had a pretty hefty rehab budget. We got the property for a great deal, but we knew that we were going to have to sink in some time with actually waiting for these people's leases to end and things. And I mean, I'll go ahead and tell you, man, the first day that we closed on the property, I showed up at the place wanting to go and meet the tenants and actually like introduce my face. This is what's going to be happening. And I had to actually take a dog from the property. First day I walked over there.
What do you mean? What happened?
There was a dog literally sitting there in a cage. It was probably like 3 weeks old, just covered in fleas, had like moss growing in the water, moss growing in the food. It had just been sitting out there that had just rained the night before. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, this cannot be like my first day walking in to see this place. And sure enough, like I walked up to the second floor, knocked on one door, and they were like, yeah, I'm looking after this dog for a friend. Um, uh, yeah, it's been sitting out there, for the last like day or so. It won't stop yapping. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to take this dog, and you just let me know when you have a better place for it to stay.
Mhm.
They didn't allow dogs on the property. We already installed on the lease. There was no animals or anything for it. And the dog was just in really bad shape. So I literally called my wife. And the minute I called my wife, I said, I don't want to do this. And she was like, there's an animal in trouble, isn't there? And I was like, oh God, yeah. So she told me, bring it home. We got it a flea bath. And then like 3 days later, I found a friend of mine that was said, hey, I'd love to take her. She seems like a really sweet dog. And I spoke to the tenant that like I had taken the dog from, and I said, hey, like, if you can tell me that you're going to provide a better home for it, I'm happy to give the dog back. And I let my person know that I gave it to. And they just looked at me and they just said, no, I probably can't. And I felt like a really bad person having to do that. But at the same time, like this lady like had kept this dog out there for probably 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And it was probably 3 weeks old. Not that 3 weeks. So probably like 5 or 6 weeks old.
Yeah.
So it was one that like fit in the side, like in like the cap of my hat. And it was such like a rough thing to go and start off with being like, okay, this is what my tenants now know me as, the person that just took a dog right out.
Mhm.
And so I started knocking on everybody's door. Hey, like, I'm not that kind of a person. I'm not trying to be mean or anything. I just saw something in trouble. I needed to come in and help. And when I started like speaking to everybody and figuring out who they were in there, I started realizing that the people that were in there, it's lower income people. So there's just a lot more struggles that they have to face. These people were paying like $400 a month in rent for the past like 4 years or so. They didn't think they were going anywhere, but at the same time, they also just let the places they were living in just in squalor. So I mean, like mold issues everywhere, like leaks and stuff, like coming to me being like, well, you're going to change the light bulbs in the main space. Well, like that's the least of the problems, man. Like I hear rats crawling on the walls. So me having to wait for leases to expire, and then basically luckily I came with everybody out of there, no evictions. I didn't have to file anything. I finally just came to them and I said, realistically, like I'd love to bring you guys all back over here, but truth be told, like I can't work on this property and do everything that we need to get it up with you guys still being in here. So since everybody's lease is up, best thing that I can do is ask you guys to leave, and I'll contact everybody. And if you guys would like to come back, we have rates we're going to change. We have security deposits we're going to change. New systems will be in place, but you will have a comfortable, clean place to come over to that you don't feel sick coming to.
Right.
Because you could just tell everybody had a cough because of the mold issues that were there. And it was just, the building it needed some TLC. It was a 100-year-old building that just needed some work done on it.
Wow. Yeah. So been there a while. So and y'all are working on it today, right?
We are
rehabbing and trying to fix it up.
We just got the last tenant out of there about 2 weeks ago, and now we've gone full steam into we're basically doing the plumbing, the electrical, and then most of it's just cosmetic. There's no real like structural things, thank goodness. But kind of going back to just the learning process of things, always having to get, 3 quotes for everything that you do. I mean, if you want to leave everything to a contractor and let them do everything, that's fine. Everybody can. I wanted the more educational piece for it so that I can come back and say, hey, I can do this on more deals. So, and now I know, like when I walk in, like if I can take a knife and I can stab it through wood, probably needs to be replaced because that's either termite damage or something that's just gone rotten in it. Learning little things like that, like, you hear a floor clip creak. If I stomp on it, is it an echo sound? Is it subfloor? Or is it structural? Like, because you can feel like a soft spot in the whole thing. Little things like that I'm getting a chance to see on a daily basis now. What a contractor sees helps me just in my education, because now I go to my contractors, hey, like, what do you guys need supplies wise? Like, can I bring a case of water or anything? These guys are helping me so much with just teaching me with, like, one of the contractors walked up and he was like, dude, like, look at this plaster. If this didn't have fibers coming out of it, I would have ran out because this might have been asbestos. But if you see this has horsehair in it. So the horsehair tells me that it's safe to be in here. And that's just a really old way they used to do stuff back in the day. So random stuff like that I get a chance to like learn and understand, what has been super like educational for me, like just how they did handyman specials back in the day. I mean, Jacksonville is full of just people trying to do rehab work or just repairs. And if you don't have to pull the permit, we'll just get, Jim Bob to go ahead and take care of it, and he'll put a Band-Aid over it, but it's not an actual fix. That happens everywhere over here. So finding out those issues and figuring out, okay, here's the issue, how do I fix it? Now, like, I don't have to go and bother more contractors with what I don't know, because it's kind of like if you go to like an auto mechanic shop and they say, hey, I'm hearing this grinding noise. Well, they could say that's anything. Now I can go in and say, hey, I know that this area is probably causing subfloor. It could be termite damage. I see some kind of issues with mold. What are your thoughts on this? Because then I can pinpoint it, and I know that I'm at least still speaking their language, so that they can get an essence of, this guy knows a little bit more, and I want to keep learning from those people.
I could see that you can probably learn from that situation, and as you're even walking the property and doing all that, you'll learn for the next one, maybe on better due diligence, because there are deals out there. I know that there's wholesalers, the geeks, the yellowbirds. I mean, there's people that are actually doing those deals and wholesaling them out there that they don't want to keep it. They want to get, sell it to somebody that's an investor that wants to do something with it. But I could probably see that now you guys would just do even more due diligence on that stuff, right?
And honestly, I would do another 5 deals like that in a row. And as much as it like made me pull my hair out and made me just like I'll kid you not, like we're partners. We've had arguments with each other, it's just on like what works out better. Or you're like, are things moving the right way? And I would have more deals like that just because of the learning that I've got a chance to like just fast forward into getting thrown into the lines then. And like, my guys are busy. So like, it's kind of been left to me to be like the boots on the ground. And I'm happy with being that now, because at first it was like, like I'm investing so much into this. There's so much worries I've got to do. But that was when I had the W-2. The W-2 was kind of keeping me afloat and things. And then when I left that and I said, okay, I got to make this happen. I started, basically Matt had to pull me in, and he was like, dude, you're gonna be fine. Calm down. And like, I literally, I needed that. And I was like, you're right. I need that. And it took me a second to really gauge like, okay, like I just got to just slowly build like the baby steps to get to where we need to go. And that was such an eye opener to me, just to, calm down. Like, my partners trust me with the job that I'm doing. I'm not going to go and make a $6,000 flop on something random. Like, I know that if we have to do anything, like we got to get a fumigation done. We've got to do certain little things like that. So we come back and we say, hey, the reason of this is because I have found, drywood termites, flying around the property. I found certain issues, like the windows are broken. We've got to get those fixed. So I'm doing what I can, because my skin is in the game too, with being a third of a partner. So just now getting a chance to like learn that. And now that this rehab is starting to take place, and we should hopefully, I'm going to knock on wood saying that we'll have everything finished we should have everything up and running by January. But I mean, who knows? Certain things like that can happen. But now being at least an empty place, it gives me more opportunity to say, hey, like, I want to find more people. I want to grow. I want to do this again. And how do I keep scaling this? How do I just be the person that's like boots on the ground for somebody else? If I can just keep learning this, even if I'm not doing anything, like making anything, I want the education so that I can come back and I can pretty much hop over to the next person to say, hey, like, you don't know what you're doing. You may have capital, but I'm going to jump over you because I know exactly what I need to get done. I'm going to beat out the time that you can do your whole project in.
Yeah, that's huge, right? And you would do that same deal again and again, which is saying that you were talking about the flip before. That was like a no-brainer. No, this is a different thing that you would do this all over again. So you really found your stride, and the partners to work with Matt and Josh, and that's big. And that's something that comes up as a big topic in the investor meetups. It comes up in different podcasts, which is partnerships. We were just at Yellowbird, and one of the things that Pat was talking about was scaling the business. Pat Flynn out there. And Pat was saying something about partnerships. That could be a whole nother topic. Kyle Paskowitz talked about that either last July in 2021. But talk to us about what that's like, and the fact that you got to know who your partners are. If you're going to get into this business and partner with people, know who they are, know what their goals are, know what they're looking for, and take the time to learn what they've done and what you want to do, and align those goals together. What's that been like?
It's definitely been I think the biggest thing for me is that I found that everybody has capital. It's what you can contribute to like your partnership to say, hey, like, am I the boots on the ground person? What am I taking care of on a day-to-day basis? Am I giving, like, am I a partner? Am I getting more equity because I'm doing certain things? Like, what does that look like? And it looks like something different for everybody. In a perfect world, we're partners, like if you and I got a property, we're 50-50 partners. And you just have to just figure out who you are speaking to, what they want as a partner. Like if they come in and they say, oh, like I've got all this cash I want to invest, but I don't know if I want to do the property management side of things. Okay, well, I'll help you get the deal. Would you want me to just do the property management and I'll take the regular 10%? Like, what does that look like to you? So finding those people that, what I love about this community, and this is what I love about getting a voice to talk on your show is I want to look for more people that want to have coffee, want to have lunch, and just get a chance to see what each other is all about so that we can come back and you say, hey, like I've got a single family property that I'd love to, get a partner in on. I've got like another multifamily. I've got an apartment complex that I'm, trying to work on. Like what can we all contribute to each other? Because I think that the money is a very easy thing to find nowadays, but the right partners in place are the hardest thing to find because it's kind of like a marriage. You can go and do different deals with different people. You don't have to stay with the same partners, but what you can get a chance to like learn from those other partners, you can bring back to your other people and you can say, hey, like I learned this from this guy. I want to implement this on our next deal.
Sure.
And you can keep growing that. You can just become like a referral source for education for everybody. And learning just what sets people off, what works out well, what they want to handle as you grow that business, you really want to take a gauge on. Because if I say I want to, be the operations person, I don't mind being that because I know that there's a lot more legwork to that and stuff. But at the same time, I know that because that's what I've been focusing on, I can make that happen. If somebody else wants to come in and say, hey, like I'm the numbers person, like I need that. I am not the greatest at math. Like 2 + 2 is like 17 to me. So like trying to understand like those certain things, like I can get a gauge of math in a nutshell, but when it comes down to like the boiling of like, hey, what does this look like? How does the finances actually work? It is like that math equation you can learn from like those apps, Deal Check and stuff. But then when it comes down to actually like the budgets and stuff, hey, are we looking at being over budget? Okay, if we're over budget, how far away can we see that? What do we need to do to shave costs? And finding those people that can actually break that down for you is such like a necessity because these deals, everybody can get into a real estate deal tomorrow. It's not a problem to get into a real estate deal. That's a very easy thing because I can go tomorrow and say, hey, Kyle, I want to go ahead and, get this hard money loan from you and buy this next property. The hard part is making sure that you get a profit at the back end of it. Like you buy the property and then what happens, the whole property gets condemned. Okay, well, now I got a hard money loan I got to pay back. Nothing is being profitable for the first, year, but then the second year I'm making, $1,000. Do I have that kind of a time frame? So learning, kind of going back and learning those numbers and what those partners can offer is such a big thing. And then just setting those realistic expectations, like, hey, what do you see in this partnership? What happens? From, writing contracts and stuff, the more that you can get out of a partnership agreement, like the more that you can talk about it up front, the less it's going to have to, you're going to have to charge an attorney for it because they're writing up the partnership agreements and they're saying, hey, tell me about what happens if, say, the wife takes ownership of the properties during divorce and stuff. Well, if we have that already kind of written out, like who takes what, it saves us more time, less headache for us for the partnerships. Can we buy out one of the people that, isn't there? That's a big thing. I think, don't like always look to sell from within and see if your partners want to sell. If they do, what does that look like? Everybody wants favorable numbers. I want the person walking away from a group to always be happy because at the end of the day, like we may all come back together. I hope that everybody always comes back together because I want to know where you've been, what you've been putting your time into. How do I scale with you again?
Yeah, no, it's all great stuff that you just shared, Trey. I mean, people could take a lot of information from that because partnerships and really finding the right people to work with on deals, or even just getting into business with on a consistent basis, very difficult, right? Pat Flynn and Kyle Paskowitz, rare birds, literally, no pun intended, rare birds out there that they have different roles. Kyle's talked about that, different roles. But what they offer is the opportunity to work with people outside, bring people in, JV with people. But for them, it was finding the balance, right? Finding the styles that they bring to the table, their goals, right?
Yeah.
And Pat talked about that at the Yellow Bird meeting, which was that Kyle and him are stronger than ever, and their goals just align, their vision aligns, and it's hard to find that. Dominic Felix and Gonzalo Corzo at Cash Keys, another example of partnerships and finding the right rhythm. One wants to be either behind the scenes or in front or whatever it is. The fact is that they work in harmony, right? So finding that balance in partnerships. I could go down the list of Mark and Dominic. Mark and Dominic were on my show. Talk about two guys, very young. And it's funny, I've talked to them over 2-3 years. And Mark and Dominic, they really they go after deals. They're just like, we got this thing coming up. We got this thing coming up. And what they've really done is formed a unique partnership, right? And I can see that is exactly the kind of thing you're trying to do, right? You're really looking to continue that with Matt, with Josh, and what you're doing, and find all those other people that want to get on those deals. So one thing you definitely want to do is Trey, he is constantly grinding. He was just telling me that he locked up 3 more contracts in the last week. If you want to talk about deals, JV on deals, you want to get with Trey. He's boots on the ground, hustler. He wants to even get into more things. Trey, talk about that. I mean, you really want to get into more of these situations, more of these deals, and you're grinding.
Yeah, I mean, I want to absorb everything that I can because there's so much information to learn. I mean, we listened about innovations, I think yesterday from Corey that you had a chance to bring onto the show. Learning about, again, seller financing. Conti was able to, give me some information on that. And just, there's so much knowledge out there that people want to share. And it's so hard in those big group settings to just reach out and have that voice of saying like, hey, I would love to partner in a deal. I don't even know where to start. Can somebody like just help me out with like, where do I figure out? Somebody will reach out and say, okay, well, what do you want to get into? What do you want to learn? Like, where can I add value? And it's such a necessary thing in just this age for us to just reach out to our groups, because we're all so involved with staying, just through a camera. Like nobody really wants to interact face to face so much nowadays, but like, I love doing that. I love to just show that like, hey, I'm Spicoli from Fast Time at Ridgemont High, like that's what I feel like I am sometimes. Like, but when you get a chance to actually like sit and talk with somebody, it's like, okay, this person's actually got merit. Like, what's their why? My why is because I want to take care of my family. Like, I want to know that like I have money coming in. I want to enjoy myself. Like, I want to live my life not having to worry so much about like this massive dollar, like this debt's coming in.
Right.
There's always debts coming in. There's always issues for us. We want to enjoy ourselves because we don't know how long we have. So
yeah, no, Trey, I mean, again, tons of great info and knowledge for people that are either just getting started, are working in their way full time. Maybe they're a couple years in and didn't think about some of the things that you've gone through or went through or what you're working on. So I think there's tons of things out there. We'll get to the finale part, but anybody that comes in the studio, gets a shirt from me. And I love presenting it because it's one thing that we do on the show where we have people come in. So I want to say, one, thank you for coming in the studio today. I love having guests in person. I love when people are coming in here. We get to do this. We get to learn about what you're working on, what you're doing. So I want to give you the shirt.
Thanks, man.
This is for you, man. Yeah, that's the right size. We'll make sure we get a great picture on that. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to say,
thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Really appreciate everything.
No, thank you. Thanks for coming in. I'm glad we got to connect when we did. I'm glad I got to see you recently at the Realtor Builder Trade Show. It's like those are those moments, right? That you run into people at the right time and in the right situation. You get to connect with those right people, and it always works out.
Absolutely.
And it's so great that we get to do this and have you in person. So Trey, thanks again so much for coming. I'm really glad we got to dive in on this stuff. And as I do with all my guests on the Al Nicoletti Show, final words, final thoughts, everything Trey Hagins on your journey, where you're going, what's happening, anything real estate, final words, final thoughts.
I really appreciate the voice that I got a chance to express out here tonight. I'm always looking for people to grab lunch with, coffee, get a chance to just figure out what we can contribute to each other. Hit me up. Love to find out, what makes you tick and figure out how we can scale together. Thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, man. Hey, awesome. I love it. Thanks for watching the show. Thanks for tuning in when we, all the great people that are out there. Love the fans, love the followers. It's always good that we get people that are always watching and engaging. We love the engagement on the show. I talk about that all the time, but love the engagement. And Trey, I know you engage with the show, so really appreciate it. I want to hear what's happening. I want to hear how it's progressing. I can't wait to see you, Matt, and Josh just keep taking off with it. I'm sure Matt's seeing all the great tax benefits with doing the 8plex.
Oh, absolutely.
Many more 8plexes to come. So awesome stuff, man. Thanks again. Keep crushing it. Love it. Thanks, man.
Appreciate
Love it.
Man.
Well, everybody, you heard it there from Trey Hagins. When you bring on guests that are rising in the community, a rising investor like Trey, it's so important to hear what the local market's doing and how you can really get started, what to focus on, how to pivot and change, especially with the creative financing, right? That seems to be a really hot topic right now. I think we're going to hear about that more and more as the Fed does what it does and keeps raising the rates. And who knows what the percentages are going to be. And then they just keep squeezing the market. But when things like that happen, then there's other opportunities out there. And it seems that it's going to be huge in the creative financing world. So make sure you check that out. And we had Nick Legamaro on the show that talked all about that with creative financing and seller terms. Love all that stuff. And I just want to say, love everybody that's always watching. Jesse, he said, awesome show. Shout out to Michael Williams, my producer. I love it. There you go. And I just really love it. Robert Rodriguez, thank you for watching as always. Awesome stuff. Thank you for commenting and really engaging. He was dropping gems and he always drops bombs and hearts out there. So thank you, Robert. Awesome stuff. And of course, if you want more material and episodes like the episode tonight with Trey, make sure you check out the Al Nicoletti YouTube channel, the Facebook page, the business page, the Instagram at Attorney Nicoletti with all the micro content that's constantly posting on probates, quiet titles, and all the micro from the show, season 1, season 2, season 3, on all the guests that we've had. You don't want to miss it, and you don't want to miss out on some of the guests. As you've probably seen in the opening when we have the show, we talk about the people that have been on. Trey's going to be on next episode on the last week. So we do that so you don't miss who has been on the show and what they're trying to go over and talk about, because everybody's got a different story. Everybody's got a different background. Everybody's got something different to offer in what they're doing. And someone like Trey understands that it's a grind in the beginning. And it's going to be a grind, and you got to really work through it, and you got to be consistent with it and persevere. That's the key to all this. So I just want to say thanks again, everybody. Thank you for all being out there. I hope you have a great night. Tune in next Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Got a special one again. You don't want to miss it. Put the reminder in your phone. Just drop the reminder in so it's reoccurring. That's actually the key. Put the reminder in and it's reoccurring, and the thing's just going to keep buzzing on your phone every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. That's what they got to do, Trey. That's the key to it. So don't forget to tune in, and I will see everybody next week on the Al Nicoletti Show. I hope you all have a great night. Take care. I'll see you soon.